How important are technical skills in construction management, and how do they impact project success?
So I would say technical skills. A majority of the people that work in my group do have engineering degrees and backgrounds. And technical skills, though, change as a construction manager. We say we know a little or a lot about all of the systems. Some of us know building systems. For example, structural is not my favorite part of the building. I enjoy more the interior.
With women making up just 11% of the workforce and only 4% in construction and maintenance roles, this remains one of the most male-dominated industries. But progress is happening, and more women are stepping into leadership roles, driving change and proving they belong at every level of this profession. In this episode, I'm so happy to be joined by Elizabeth Lutz, CMM Group Manager at T&M Associates, a leader who's navigated the complexities of construction management firsthand. She's going to share with us some insights on overcoming industry challenges, the value of both technical and soft skills, and how mentorship and networking can open doors for women in this field. This is also a very special episode as it marks the end of the Women in the Engineering podcast for now. Tiffany and I are deeply grateful for your incredible support. Hosting this podcast has been such an honor, and I've cherished every moment, especially connecting with amazing people. But while this chapter is on pause, you can explore more engineering management podcasts at engineeringmanagementinstitute.org/podcasts. I'll also be co-hosting the AEC Leadership Podcast with Anthony, and I really look forward to continuing these conversations there. So I'm Rebecca Swaby, and for one last time, this is the Women in Engineering podcast. And with that, let's jump right into today's episode. And now it's time to jump right into the main segment of today's episode. Today, I have with me Elizabeth Lutz. Liz, welcome to the Women in Engineering podcast.
Hey, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So to get started, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your career journey into construction management. What inspired you to get into this field?
It's an interesting path, I would say. So I went to an all-girls high school outside of Philadelphia. And as they say, I was good at math and science, or so they told me. So somebody suggested engineering. I did not have any engineers in my family. I have a couple contractors, but, nothing super professional. So I went to, it took me a long time, or maybe my mom says I was dragging my feet. I did not pick a college, and luckily Drexel University in Philadelphia accepted me, and I went there. Not too far from home, but what really drew me to that was the co-op program. So I enrolled in engineering and struggled through that. It's not an easy program, but I made it through some hard work and lots of late night study sessions with my roommate. And the real thing that turned me on to where I work now is the co-op program. I did 3 distinct co-ops there, different firms, different backgrounds, and my last co-op luckily was as a construction manager owner's rep. And unfortunately, when I graduated, the industry was a little unsteady, so I went to work for a municipal engineering firm, a small firm, and they quickly realized that I needed to be outside and not in the office designing. I think I was a distraction to the other designers. So I started inspecting roads and the road program, and it was great. But the market changed a little, and my last co-op called and asked if I could manage a project, where I was living at the time. And as they say, the rest is kind of history. It was quite a job. My first job as a 20-some-year-old woman with 19 primes down the shore, and I did not even have the internet. So, it was quite a different world then. But I loved it. I realized that that's where I wanted to be. So I quickly evolved into being an owner's rep and construction manager.
Okay, so it sounds like you weren't necessarily back in high school thinking about working in construction necessarily. You didn't have this big inspirational moment. You kind of stumbled in.
I did, for sure. And it's funny because I remember being young and walking past construction sites and being nervous. Like that old, exactly what was going to happen when I walked by. I don't know. And it's funny that when I first got out there, and through my last co-op, I got a lot of experience out on the site, so it started to feel more comfortable. But once you get out there, it really was something that I wanted to do. It keeps you out of the day to day. Every day is different, kind of out in the field, getting to talk with people, solve problems. And that's when I realized this is what I wanted to do. Or this is where I was best.
Do you remember your first day on the construction site still? Any memories come back about that?
I mean, I remember my first real project that was mine like it was yesterday. And you will see, people will say, "Oh, do you remember so-and-so from this project?" And I'll say, "No." It has to be, as you can imagine, I see a lot of gentlemen on the site. So there's lots of guys. Not all of them are memorable, but I remember every superintendent on that first job. And from the concrete foreman who was teaching me how to lay out, and the GC's foreman who was also an older gentleman, but I remember all their names, and if I saw them today, I would know exactly who they are. And we were there for 2.5 years, supposed to be there for a year, but you get to really know people on the site. But that one in particular, I remember we drove the first pile on October 31st, 2005.
Wow.
And
Great
I
memory.
but I don't remember anything in between, but that's how critical that job was to me, to really like forming my path and kind of making things make sense for me in the future.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about being new as well too, and you're really just soaking it all in so deeply.
For sure. I mean, I just walked out there. I didn't what I know today, I don't think I would have made it if I would have known that day. But everyone, they were great. So it was a good job to, get started on. It was not easy. And like I said, it wasn't, I couldn't Google things. The guys on the job really taught me a lot, and I learned to listen and, before I speak. And if you're not sure, don't say anything. So that kind of was helpful.
That's an interesting point about, there's no Google on the site. And so the expectation is that you're going to learn from the other people there. And so everyone's willing, and hopefully were they willing and interested in teaching you while they could?
They were. And I think some of that just, it comes from personality and, not, showing up and saying, this is how we're going to do things, realizing these, and it was all guys on the job. I mean, they have years of experience. I just graduated college. I don't, and I've never actually built anything on my own.
Right.
But once they realized that I had the information, and I was studying and learning and listening to them, you kind of start gaining some respect. And then they're knocking on your door saying, "Hey, do you have this? Do you have that?" And as long as you always have it, they kind of really start to respect what you're doing out there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So,
once you get into the groove, there's massive ways you can be helping them as well too. It goes both ways.
Yes.
And just out of interest, you said that you went to an all-girls high school and then ended up in construction. That must have been an interesting change, and even in engineering, which is primarily male-dominated.
It certainly was. I mean, we weren't, the boys' school was right across.
Okay.
So we certainly spent a lot of time with the guys next door. And I think they kind of helped shape my comfort level around, lots of guys. I have really good friends that I've had since high school. And they can be brutal. So they have helped shape me into someone that can kind of deal with being in these situations. And the all-girls school, I think, it helps women or young women, just kind of do your work without distraction. The distraction is after school, or, if there was a guy that came over for class, we'd all say, "Oh, so-and-so's in the hallway."
Everybody knows about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was like there was an alarm that went off. But I think that just, that kind of education, I do still believe it can be helpful for young women to kind of just get into, during your most difficult or awkward years, to really just have strong women supporting you. And, but also to have that exposure to the guys next door too. So
it helps a little bit.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So
good. Well, I'm curious now, what does a typical day look like for you? You're the group manager at T&M Associates. What aspects of the job do you really love? Are there any parts that you want to talk about that you don't love as much?
I would say I mean, the most difficult part of my day, which is funny as a construction manager, and I spend less time in the field now than I did earlier in my career, but my day always starts and I still struggle with what am I going to wear? Because we could be out in the field. I could have a meeting with a client. I could have to go to a networking event. I could have to do all of these things in one day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always work boots and a vest and a hard hat in my car. But is it cold out? And what am I going to face today? So that's how the day starts. And I'll say, because that's always the worst part of my day, the rest goes a little easier. I generally, I mean, a lot of my time now is spent kind of managing the people that are out in the field, and also helping them high level on their projects. So I still go to job meetings. I still sometimes have to sit on a job site for the day. But a lot of my time is really more spent mentoring them and making sure that they have everything they need to manage their projects successfully. And then also, I do spend a lot of time going to client meetings and events, networking events, and those type of things. So, and I would say that's really what I like the most
Mm.
is the people. And the day to day is every day is different. So that works really well for me, not being in one place every day and kind of working at a high level.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like there's a business development component to the job as well too, with the clients, and then with the team, making sure that they deliver. Would that be fair to say?
Certainly,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's a big part of what, as I started my career out in the field every day. I've been on job sites for 2 years, 1 year. Every day going to a job trailer. As you progress, some people will then become more business development. Some people really enjoy that being out in the field and the technical side, and they stay
Mhm.
there, and they love it, and they'll retire in a construction trailer.
Mhm.
I have kind of evolved the other way, and but it doesn't mean that I still don't put the boots on, go out there, look at things, and with my experience, I'm able to help some of the next generation of our construction managers really understand what we're looking for, what the client's key success factors are, and how we can help them get there, and really just giving that support.
Yeah. That's great. I know you've worked on a variety of projects with different delivery methods, design, bid, build, and design, build. What are the key differences, and how do they influence project outcomes?
So for the most part, my career has been design, bid, build. We do, and now are doing a little bit more of design, build. And I also, I worked at a firm at a point in my career. I thought, what are all the contractors doing? I can do a better job than them, or I could do a job. I could do this better than them, and that, I guess that's when you get a certain level of experience, you start thinking, what else could I do? So I did go work for a construction manager at risk, and it quickly humbled me and made me realize that these contractors and construction managers at risk, their job is not easy either. So that was a lot of design build. And with that, I've learned that, for the owner, design build, you give up a little control. And you design bid build, you get exactly what you've asked the designer to give you in most cases. You get to really plug that in and say, I'd like this, I'd like that. And then design bid build, there's a little leeway for the bidding contractor, construction manager, and design team to give you what they think you asked for in your documents. So I would
Mm.
say both, they have their benefits. It just, depends on what the owner's looking for. Some people say time, you can save time with design build. You can. So it's really just what the owner's looking for and how their contracting methods work. In the state of New Jersey, it's a little bit harder for these public entities to do design build just because of contract requirements. But we're getting there. So you'll probably see more of those coming out in the
It
future.
sounds like that's the direction they're trying to head. They'd
Yeah,
like to
yeah.
head. Yeah.
They're certainly they're giving owners more contract methods that they can use, and I think you'll start to see people starting to use those. So,
Mm. Okay. Good. Well, how important are technical skills in construction management, and how do they impact project success?
So I would say technical skills. A majority of the people that work in my group do have engineering degrees and backgrounds. And technical skills, though, change as a construction manager. We say we know a little or a lot about all of the systems. Some of us know building systems. For example, structural is not my favorite part of the building. I enjoy more the interior, but I know enough about it, to understand the drawings, to understand the submittals and what the contractor is supposed to be building. But when it comes to do I understand all the calculations? And no, for sure. That's what the structural engineer is for. But we have to know have enough technical expertise to just make sure everything's being installed as the owner wanted and as was approved on the submittals and chop drawings. And so I would say, certainly we understand risk, and those are more of the soft skills. But technically, we deal a lot with dollars and cents. It's not hard math. But, and just really understanding the drawings, the specifications, and knowing a little bit about all the trades in the building systems.
Yeah. And the risk around the schedule as well, too. Does that factor in?
For sure. And I would say, whether or not those become soft skills or hard skills is, we have to understand the schedule. We have to understand the budget. We have to understand how to track and manage it and to help the contractors and the owner understand what is happening. So, those could be technical skills. So some of that is a little bit, and a lot of it is learned, on the job. You have to also know a little bit about the code, and you have to know when to ask, your designers for more help, or if they send something back, is it the right answer? Is it the best answer? Maybe question them and kind of understand where they're coming from. So that's more of the technical side of what we do.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What's the relationship like with the designer, the structural engineer, for example? Like how often, would you find them being pulled in, and how does that typically work?
In most cases, so the way we typically work as the owner's rep is, we have a solid line to the owner. The owner contracts with us. The owner also contracts with their usually architectural lead, because I do vertical construction. If we were doing horizontal, they would contract maybe with the civil engineer or someone directly, but they contract with the architect, and then the architect usually hires all of their subconsultants, structural, electrical, environmental, anybody that they might need. It depends. It depends on, a lot of times the best way for us to get involved in a project is from concept. So if an owner has us involved, a lot of times we even help them write their requests for proposals, their RFPs for the designers. So we are usually the person that knows the most about the project. We interact with the design team, I'll say with the lead designer, on a regular basis. We try not to, without the architect, we don't just reach out to the structural engineer and ask them questions. We work through them, but as the jobs go on, you kind of develop the relationships and the trust between the designer and us and the owner. And they know that we're working in the best interest, helping them along. And then the same happens when you get to the contractor. We just deal with, for example, the general contractor, and then their subcontractors. We don't directly interact with them, in theory. We see them. Yeah, we see them out on the job site, and a lot of times, I'll know different subs from different jobs, and hey, how you doing? And they might tell me things, but we always kind of go through the general contractor, and the same happens with the consultants for the architect. If I see them, we talk, but we always make sure we go back to the designer of record and keep everybody in the loop.
So these can be big teams sometimes with lots of stakeholders.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we deal with, attorneys, testing agents, surveyors, anybody that, if it's land development, we're out there working. One of my most recent projects also had lot sales involved. So I was involved with a realtor, and also with, a different attorney dealing with that. So we can get involved. And we really do. We become the advisor to the client. We help them with whatever they need. And that's how we learn so much about, project from start to finish and from pre-start to finish. So,
okay. And, we probably should have talked about some example projects at the beginning, but are your projects typically more on the government side or private or a bit of both?
I'd say this latter half of my career and working at T&M, they have become more of the government side, local municipalities, doing, I just finished we're doing a lot of new municipal buildings, police stations, firehouses,
Okay.
municipal courts. There's a lot of those going on in New Jersey. I've worked on a couple of them. I'm doing a firehouse right now. I recently did a project for the Sisters of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and they're a private client that I've known for a long time, and they did a new retreat down in South Jersey, and it's beautiful, and we kind of mix it up, depending on the need, but mostly right now we're doing a lot of municipal work.
Okay. Do you have a favorite type of project?
I mean, I have favorite projects that I finished, and they're not always the easiest. I mean, the retreat was amazing. It's beautiful. It's on the beach.
Can people actually go in and check it out, or is it?
Oh yeah. I mean,
okay.
everybody knows about it. I mean, the
Okay.
Sisters are slightly famous in that town, or very famous in that town. So everybody goes there and they look at the project, and people say to me, "Oh, that was your project," So that one, makes you proud. I've also used to do a lot of nursing homes. That has changed over time, but I loved working on those. You had the older ladies and gentlemen that lived in the nursing home, and they would really give you feedback, and it was fun. I mean, you're improving their life.
Do they want to see the drawings as well?
Some of them, I mean, you have retired tradesmen sitting there,
Right.
and they say, I saw them doing this, and, and it's great. That's great. I think I love when the people are really impacted.
Yeah.
And the nursing homes gave you that. And also we were entertainment for them, during the day.
Absolutely. You got a lot of eyeballs on you.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it was fun. I mean, those are fun. The Sisters are always fun. But now I'm working with the fire department, and that's great as well. It's really improved a corner of a neighborhood, and it's going to help with their response to the town. So, and they're living in a very old firehouse, and it's probably been overdue for some time, but they're going to get a really nice building that they can function in. So those are, I mean, it's really just when people are happy, it makes me happy. It's not exactly every, I don't do high rises or, these major city developments, but the smaller ones, they work out well because usually it makes a big impact for people.
Yeah, there's a group of people that you directly impact. Sometimes in other disciplines, you might work on a road or a highway. Lots of people use it, but you're not necessarily getting complimented by people every day. But you finish a firehouse and you get to actually see the people walk in that are going to be using it.
It is. It's nice. And I mean, in particular, we used to do a lot of renovations of, vacant buildings, turning them into something else. That changes neighborhoods, when buildings aren't empty anymore and they can reuse them. It's great. It's great for cities and towns. So I like doing those type of projects.
Good. Well, going back to the stakeholder point, what would you say are some of the most valuable soft skills, and how do they give women an advantage in the industry?
So I think one thing that I have, I don't know if you're, familiar with woo, but, winning others over.
Woo, I haven't heard of that. I've heard of woo-woo, but
there's a lot of, just getting everybody on the same team, collaboration, making people trust you. And that helps a project a lot. I mean, we have communication, organization, being able to pivot. I work on multiple projects. So, top priorities and just making sure that you're addressing the needs. I would say making sure you're client focused. T&M has, our core values, and most of them like work right on with what we need to do for our clients. Just focus on them, work on the communication, work on the collaboration, getting a real team aspect on a project, I think is more important these days than it used to be when I first started. There's more of let's work together. It's tough out there. Contractors aren't the enemy. Designers aren't the enemy. Getting the project done for the client should really be everybody's focus. And I would say that what women, I feel like as a woman in the industry, I can gain a level of trust faster. I don't, egos are big around the industry. And if you just, let people know that you're here to help and, be a little empathetic and that you're looking out for their best interest as well. I think that's why women do a little better. I don't know, maybe that, I still work mostly with men. It's funny though, because a lot of the owners are becoming, it seems like a lot of owners are female. So that's been fun. Getting to
Interesting.
actually, and on my projects, dealing with the CFO
Right.
or, the sisters for sure.
Yes.
And, a lot of hospitals are, there's a lot of women that have gotten into leadership roles there. So that has changed things a little, and it's made it nice. It's good for me, and I think they also like dealing with a woman in construction. But, no, as long as you have the expertise, I feel like everybody doesn't mind working with either gender in our industry. But women are just a little bit, maybe a little bit more empathetic. I try to get to know the people that I'm working with. I think that helps. Know them a little bit personally, not too much, but
Yeah.
know if
Just
they have
enough.
kids, know if they have to leave early, know, sometimes I'll be working with the superintendent and I'll say, aren't you supposed to pick up your kids? And he's like, oh, and I know those things about them, and I think they
Yeah. And it sounds
appreciate
like
that.
it's genuine interest. You said
Yeah.
you're you love like building relationships with people, right? And then good listener, and that just helps naturally.
Yeah, I think that if you don't have those things, you will have a difficult time in our industry. I mean, you can have all the technical skills, but if you don't understand the people and kind of what makes them tick, you won't be able to, gain, project success. Everybody will be working against each other, and that happens. It happens sometimes, and those are not fun projects, and sometimes they're not successful. So.
Yeah. And woo is such great advice. Is that like a thing? People talk
I think
about that?
so.
Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like it's a thing. Yeah.
Winning others
mean,
over. And
yeah.
would you say a little bit of it is like how to make their lives a little better at work, or, the project from their point of view?
Yeah, and I do. I think that, we can all agree that, the world is tough. COVID taught us a lot. People have things that are going on in their life, and just understanding that today this person is yelling at me, but it may be because he was really mad at whoever he lives with. And it's not me. We're just there to get the job done. And as long as you just stay fair and unbiased, and, you follow the contracts and the specs, I'm not out here to hurt you. So as soon as they know that, I feel like this trust is built, and that's where you really have project success, when everybody's working towards the same goal, because it may be hard. There may be delays. A utility may delay you. We dealt with long lead items, and, just equipment not showing up. There's nothing anybody can do about that sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's just out of the control.
It's
of
out
the
of your
team.
control. And I think that COVID really, that's the one thing it helped, is like helped us realize, okay, there's things that are out of our control. The contractors, they can't make miracles happen any more than I can. So understanding that has really changes kind of the landscape of the project.
Yeah. And do you try to not let it affect you personally then, those things that are out of your control?
The things that are out of my control, I certainly try. The one thing we can always do is just over communicate. Make sure the owner knows this is out of everybody's control. If there's anything you can do to help us, say, we need a utility or something like that, they're busy too. But it's really over communicating that. But if they're out of my control, I don't worry about them. I keep asking about them, but it's not, those things don't keep me up at night.
It's not off the list, but
it's not off the list. It's not off the list. Like, are you sure there's nothing we could do? And, but the things I do, there's a lot of things that there's things that wake me up at night. Maybe there's a long list of things that I needed to do, and sometimes something fell off the list, and I might wake up in the middle of the night and think, you got to put that back on the list. And then I might take a note. I found that if I wake up at 2:30 in the morning, make a note, and then I can go back to sleep. I'll deal with it in the morning. But just make sure that you're kind of staying on top of things. And when you manage multiple projects, the list keeps running.
Yeah.
And, some of the people that I'm training, they say, well, can I see your notes, or can I do this? And I said, you don't want to see them. They're not legible. And they said, well, how do you keep on top of all these things? And I said, I drive without the radio on. There's like a ticker that runs through my head. And you just think about them. And I think that's the best method for me. People have different methods, Post-its, this kind of thing. I do make lists. makes me feel good to cross some things off, but some things never get crossed off. So
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of given up on the list.
Yeah.
But that's really, where I am.
These are big projects, important projects. How do you keep things in perspective? I can imagine, maybe a younger person coming up looking at your job and thinking, wow, that looks really interesting, but a lot of pressure. How do you keep everything in perspective?
Well, you're always working. It's not just you out there.
Oh,
You're not working in a vacuum. There's people that will support you. There's people at T&M. There's other experts. There's the design team. There's the owner. There's pressure, but as long as you're continue to push that team mentality, I mean, okay, this isn't on me anymore. This person is working on it. Are they working on it? Can I check on them? I would say to those coming up, like, I mean, if you can stay somewhat focused and, you have an organized way about you and you're okay with, jumping from thing to thing, from task to task, you'll be okay. I mean, you just have to find the method that works for you. And for me, that's like this rolling tape in my head. Other people, it's lists. But, anybody, you can train people to do this job, technically. What you can't get from them is, do they care? I care. I care about the owners. I care about, okay, somebody's going to live here. Somebody's going to do this. Somebody's going to do that. Is this the best thing for them? It's somebody's money. It's somebody's schedule. And I treat it like it's mine. I mean, so I think that's the one thing you can't teach people. Everything else, for those up and coming, you'll learn it on the job. Somebody will tell you. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You have Google now.
And ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I'm sometimes outside, take a picture of, something infrastructure thing. What is this? And
What is it?
it comes
Yeah.
back.
And I mean, so there's those things. I mean, those are great tools for, the next generation that we didn't have. But there is always someone. There's a couple gentlemen that I've worked with for a long time at various companies, and they actually now report to me, which is funny. But they're on the technical side. They're getting towards the end of their career, and I still call them. Hey, I had this issue on my job. Like, do you think this is good? Do you think there's always people like that. And in the industry, you can find those good mentors or people that will help you. Every job has something different that you haven't seen.
Absolutely.
And so somebody else has probably seen it though. I mean,
Right.
if, you ask construction managers, what are the big issues on the job? We all come up with the same thing, but there's always these things that are thrown in and you say, oh, and COVID was a big one. I mean, nobody knew what to do. So we learned kind of together and, before it used to be, if costs were escalated, the owner wasn't paying for that, but COVID was different. And we learned from that. And so now contracts have different line items written into them just to address those type of issues. We're still in a state of uncertainty.
Mhm.
So, we're trying to work through that.
Yeah.
But there's always somebody.
There's always
go
somebody.
work for a good company. Go work for,
Yeah.
work for a good company, put yourself around good construction managers and they will want to help you because it
Right.
makes our job better. It makes my job easier when I know I can leave it to somebody. They're on the site. They care. They're going to call me if there's a major issue, but they can handle the day-to-day. Then, I want to help them get there.
Yeah. So if you're somebody who really cares and is interested and going to keep learning, you're going to get to work with a bunch of smart people that have done it before and then complete the project. And that must be super rewarding.
Yeah, I say my favorite days are ribbon cutting or groundbreaking and ribbon cutting. The in between, I mean, it can get intense out there, but I think to certain personalities and to certain people, that's really where you thrive. Solving problems, helping people get to the end point.
Yeah.
It takes a certain person, but I think there's a lot of us out there.
Yeah. Good. Let's talk about mentorship for a minute. I know you're actively involved in multiple professional organizations and serve as an ACE mentor. How have mentoring and networking organizations shaped your career? And do you have any advice for other professionals looking to build strong relationships and become mentors?
So I would say it took me till later in my career to get involved in some of the organizations. And my first advice is I see young people or young younger people, getting involved earlier. And I would say that is awesome. Get involved as early as you can. One of the organizations I really I love is the Professional Women in Construction. It creates this great mentor group. There's women from, there's attorneys, there's architects, there's engineers, construction managers, and we have a strong mentorship program there where we bring in students and kind of we give them what maybe we didn't have, a foundation. And also it's nice to be around women. I get tired of talking about football. So I mean, that's part of my job is, understanding, what everybody wants to talk about before the meeting. And, but at Professional Women in Construction, we really, we try to give the next generation, some of those things we didn't have, women to look up to ask career advice. So I would say that's one of the big benefits is of networking is, you could find the company that you love. I've been at T&M for 10 years. I'll probably be here for 20, but it might take someone longer to get to a place where they want to stay. And so getting that exposure in the networking events to the different aspects of construction you could be in early as possible will help you find your path sooner. And everybody, they can, who's hiring, or you should do this, or you would fit really well here, that kind of thing. I think that's really important for the young construction managers or engineers coming out is getting involved early so you can kind of form your path a little earlier.
Yeah. A lot of people think they need to maybe switch jobs to really experience what's out there, but having some great mentors can also maybe not necessarily save you the time because it's nothing like trying it, but at least share what their experience has been
or
like.
like go into the program events. I mean, we do,
Right.
There's great events out there where you get to listen to panel discussions. You get to hear, last night I was at Rutgers University listening to the some of the leaders at Rutgers, NJIT, Princeton, and I get to hear about their job, and what they also tell you what they look for in a consultant. And those are important things, if you want to continue along your career, is to kind of understanding that. And plus, you might actually make some friends. And it's fun to have friends that also understand what you do. So, when there's a bad day, you can say, oh, this happened or that happened. You don't always get that at home because some people have no idea what we deal with on a regular basis, especially those probably living in our homes. So it's nice to have friends in the industry and kind of use it. And also it's good for business.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, projects and getting new clients are kind of, how we take our next step. So being on top of the trends and what's new and who's looking or who's doing a project is important. It becomes
Even just,
important.
for young people that might just be getting started, just being visible can help too, right? Showing up to the events, showing your face. You don't necessarily have to present or anything, but just being there.
But I will say that getting to the presenting is, get involved.
Get involved.
Take a leap, do a little stretch goal for yourself. Because the more you do it, the better it becomes for you, for your personal growth, and for the companies you work for. So
good. Just a couple more questions for you. In technical fields, communication can be undervalued at times. How can leaders shift workplace culture to encourage an open dialogue and strengthen communication skills within their teams?
So, I mean, I cannot stress how important communication is in our industry, written, verbal. I mean, the majority of my job is emails, phone calls, now text messages.
Papers getting dropped off at your desk.
Yeah, papers getting dropped off. I'm in a very important meeting, Jason. He needs a stapler. We have a little joke that I have the best stapler in the office. And everybody, the copy machine has passed me, so they come and staple here. But he didn't. I should have put a sign on my door.
That's okay. Actually, that's a good trick. You want a little bit of social every once in a while. Get a good stapler.
Yeah, I probably stole it from somebody else's desk, to tell you the truth. It is a nice one.
Well, you can tell him he's now a guest star on the podcast.
Yeah, he's now a guest. But I can't, like I said, I cannot, and it's hard to teach that, the communication, the writing. I try to give them good models of what I write because like less is more too, for what we do. Unfortunately, litigation has become a big part of the world. So, just being mindful of what you're saying, what you're writing, what's important, what's not important. That's just an important part. I can't stress it enough.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the second part of your question because Jason interrupted me. But
no, that's great. No, I think you answered it, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any final advice that you give to women engineers looking to build careers in the construction management area?
So, the advice I would have is just don't be afraid. It can be fun. And I think that earlier, I didn't have the confidence. I think that's one thing, but, do your homework, learn your specs, learn your drawings, learn the submittals, learn the RFIs, be the person on the job that everybody needs to come to get the information, and just have the confidence that once you're there, tell them this is what it says, this is what it is. And know those contract documents, and then everything else comes naturally. But just, don't be afraid. I say the guys on the site, they're there to help you too. And they want to be successful. And, like I said, there's more women kind of in the industry now than there was when I started. Most people now just want project success. So everybody's there to help you. Everybody wants to make a little money. And as long as you're doing those things and helping people along the job, you're going to be successful. But you just don't be afraid to take the step, because it's fun. It's a nice, rewarding career where you get to meet, you can't imagine the number of people you get to meet, and from every aspect of life, from a very wealthy client to, the person delivering the materials on the job site, and they're all interesting. There's always, something new every day. And that's the part I really like. And, you can use your technical skills and you can use your soft skills, but it's rewarding to drive past a job, or for somebody to say, oh, did you see that new job? And you say, oh, that's mine. The sisters gave me a t-shirt. I don't cry that often on my jobs. One time I sprained my ankle.
Oh, okay. That's very reasonable.
One time the sprinkler went off for the third time on the project, and I cried, but nobody could tell because it was raining down on me. But the sisters gave me a t-shirt, and I knew they appreciated my work, and it said, I make big buildings happen. And it was like just knowing that you've made clients happy, achieve their goals. It's rewarding. I mean, I think, and for those that maybe went into engineering, but they're not finding that they're happy there designing, there's a lot of people that are. It's another great industry to get into, and, it's needed. The managers, they make the project successful. So I would just say, get into it.
So great to hear. Such great advice. I know that our listeners will really, really enjoy hearing your thoughts on this, and everything you've had to share. This has been such a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. You make it easy.
You made it easy. Well, thank you again, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you won't miss upcoming episodes featuring interviews with inspiring women engineers, discussions about industry trends, and so much more. Go to womenandengineeringpodcast.com, where you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, may your engineering endeavors be as remarkable as the women whose stories we're sharing. Stay curious, keep innovating, and engineer a better future.